I always hoped that the four of us would get on. But very quickly it became Meghan versus Kate. And that, when it plays out so publicly, you can't hide from that.
So I remember when she first kind of came along, obviously we knew that she'd been Harry's girlfriend for a long time, but then she started doing royal jobs for the first time. This was, I think her first one was technically the very tail end of 2017.
The Sussexes keep switching up their image faster than anyone in the spotlight right now. They're dropping new rebrands left and right, but what they totally miss is the power of consistency. From a PR point of view, it's wild to see how Meghan and Harry jump from one version of themselves to another, like they can't decide who they want to be. Their constant rebranding happens so fast, it's dizzying. No surprise that none of it seems to stick. Every move they make feels like a reaction instead of a plan. They're never ahead of the story. Always scrambling to fix things after the drama hits. Instead of owning their image, they're stuck cleaning up the mess from the last round of Backlash. It's like they're trying so hard to control the headlines, the public's opinion, and every tiny detail of how they're seen, but they keep doing it backwards. Always reacting, always chasing after what's already gone wrong. Every pivot and repackaging just makes it feel more desperate, and the speed at which they switch things up ends up sabotaging them more than helping. Harry and Meghan's entire PR game feels shaky, more about ego than strategy. It's as if they can't help but clap back every time someone questions them, like they're trying to prove something big to the world. But wasn't Meghan supposed to be past that stage? It's giving trying too hard energy, all flash, no solid ground. The moment she said that, it was obvious. Meghan was on a mission to prove something. Every single media appearance through 2025 screamed the same thing. They kept trying to prove they were victims, prove they were thriving, prove they were kind, or prove they'd been wronged, non-stop. But none of it hit the mark, because every move felt forced, like one big reaction instead of something real. The Sussexes always want people to see them exactly how they choose, picture perfect, flawless, and totally in control. But that kind of one-sided image never works for long. Let's rewind and look at their past rebrands, all those attempts that never quite landed, before diving into this year's unexpected twist in the Harry and Meghan story. After 5 long years of Meghan's way, maybe they're finally pulling back for a reality check. Back when they were still part of the royal family, Meghan clearly wanted to be seen as the next Princess Diana, adored, graceful, and effortlessly magnetic. She aimed for that iconic energy, hoping to be loved by all. But the truth didn't match the fantasy, and that's where the tension exploded. Meghan and Harry couldn't stand that the press wasn't giving them the endless praise they craved, or that the public didn't shower them with the admiration they expected. The frustration showed everywhere, behind the smiles, in the interviews, in the tone of every rebrand. It was as if they were chasing an image that just refused to become real. By 2019, Meghan had already started building the victim narrative. It really took off during that South Africa trip, when she dropped the emotional, "I'm not okay" moment in the interview with Tom Bradby. That was the spark that lit the storyline, and by the next year, things exploded. Then came 2020, the year of Megxit. But here's where it gets wild. I've got a theory, and yes, there's a deep dive video coming soon, that Megxit wasn't just a dramatic exit. It might have been one big bluff, a power move to squeeze a better deal out of the royal family. Still, that plan didn't quite hit the mark because while it looked like quitting, Meghan and Harry didn't want that label. They insisted they had no choice but to walk away since things weren't going their way inside the palace. After that fallout, they needed a total image makeover. So in 2021, they switched gears and built a new narrative, this time as the wronged ones. They were convinced that if they leaned hard into the "we've been treated unfairly" angle, the public would start seeing them as misunderstood heroes instead of spoiled royals storming off. And that's when the Oprah interview hit. Peak victim era. The sit-down was bold, emotional, and clearly designed to reset the public's perception. It wasn't just about telling their side, it was a full-scale rebrand. Meghan's approach echoed something straight from Princess Diana's old playbook. Remember when Diana used the media to show herself as the innocent one during her split from Charles, now King Charles? Meghan was following that same path, hoping sympathy would win hearts and headlines. That's exactly how it all played out. The media completely ran with that version of events. Looking back, it's clear what dominated the headlines in 2021. The Sussexes' full-blown victim strategy. I even have a breakdown that dives into how Meghan tried mirroring Diana's media moves. Same tone, same sympathy-seeking style. She was clearly aiming to walk the same path as Diana, hoping that the world would see her as the modern-day version of the people's princess. But here's the twist. Harry and Meghan truly believed that the Oprah interview would pressure the royal family into renegotiating everything. They thought their explosive confessions would force the palace to play nice. Instead, the plan completely backfired. Once the public started questioning their claims, their credibility took a nosedive. Suddenly, they weren't seen as brave truth-tellers. They were labeled as dramatic, out of touch, and unreliable. So, what did they do next? In 2022, they tried a new trick, staying close to the royals just enough to keep their relevance alive. They showed up at the Platinum Jubilee and even Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, trying to blend back into the royal scene. But the frosty family reception and the echo of public boos made it clear they were no longer welcome. The optics were rough. They looked desperate, like they were clinging to royal status while still cashing in on their outsider story. It was confusing, awkward, and honestly kind of sad to watch. They wanted to seem connected to the monarchy, but every move screamed contradiction. In 2022, Meghan and Harry's public image went through a total identity crisis. They shifted from exiled royals to trying to brand themselves as full-blown media moguls. But the world didn't exactly cheer them on. That year marked a sharp divide. People either rooted for them or rolled their eyes hard. Their popularity started free-falling and fast. The biggest paradox of 2022 was impossible to ignore: privacy versus proximity. After all those deals they signed post-Megxit, the results finally started rolling in, and wow, did it stir things up? They kept saying they wanted peace and privacy, but at the same time, every project they dropped was built on royal connections. It was the classic, we want to be left alone, but here's a documentary about our lives kind of move. Their big releases that year, the Archetypes podcast, that tell-all Netflix docuseries, and those headline-making interviews, all leaned heavily on their royal past for content and credibility. It was their golden ticket to attention, but it totally clashed with the whole, we're stepping away from the spotlight story they'd been pushing. The word hypocritical pretty much defined their entire brand in 2022. Then came 2023, and things got even messier. Spare hit the shelves, and the backlash was huge. The Netflix drama kept rumbling, their Spotify deal fell apart spectacularly, and critics didn't hold back, and they were suddenly being called the biggest losers of the year. Every move that was supposed to boost their image only seemed to make the fall louder. By 2023, Meghan and Harry's public image had turned blurry, like no one really knew what their brand stood for anymore. They clearly thought those big projects, Spare, the Netflix doc, and their podcast, would carry them through the year, but that plan totally flopped. Instead of elevating their reputation, everything started to backfire. They even tried quietly stepping away from some of their past claims, especially the ones from the Oprah interview and Netflix series about alleged mistreatment. Harry awkwardly tried to walk back those comments during his Spare promo with Tom Bradby, suddenly calling it unconscious bias instead of outright racism, but that switch-up only made things worse. People saw it as a weak backtrack, a half-hearted attempt to clean things up without owning the damage. It came off manipulative, not mature. By this point, their image was in retreat mode. They wanted to soften the we're victims story and show a calmer, more refined side of themselves. But the effort felt shallow. Just surface-level media polishing. Behind the scenes, it was the same game as before, just with a glossier filter slapped on top. To make things worse, Omid Scobie's tell-all book dropped that year, stirring more drama by naming certain royal figures supposedly involved in those past conversations that upset Harry and Meghan.
If you were to listen to Harry and Meghan about it, you'd think that everyone hated them, but actually people loved Harry and Meghan. They lined the street on those early royal jobs in Cardiff and Brixton in London and Edinburgh and Scotland.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there for all of those, and speaking to people, speaking to the fans, and pressing themselves up to the crowd control barriers for walkabouts, and we got little lines from. They do give a lot on these jobs.
And sources even hinted the couple themselves had added fuel to the fire by sharing some of those juicy stories. That didn't help their case. It just reignited controversy they were supposedly trying to leave behind. Then came the knockout blow, South Park's brutal worldwide privacy tour parody. That episode went viral, and the satire hit a little too close to home. It captured the public's growing fatigue. Everyone was just tired of hearing from them. By the end of 2023, Harry and Meghan's brand was sinking under the weight of overexposure. Too many projects, too many interviews, too many contradictions. The public had simply had enough. By the end of 2023, the Sussexes' public image was hanging by a thread, completely weighed down by exhaustion. Even some of their loyal supporters started checking out, saying Meghan and Harry had turned their pain into a full-time business. Their brand felt recycled, like they'd told the same story one too many times. What once sounded powerful had become predictable, and that repetition drained the spark right out of their image. They never really escaped the shadow of that Oprah interview. Everything since then circled back to those same themes, the same heartbreak, the same grievances, the same "we were wronged" narrative. It became their whole identity, and people got tired of hearing it. By 2023, it wasn't sympathy they were earning anymore. It was sighs and side eyes. When their Spotify deal collapsed and engagement with later projects flatlined, the message was loud and clear. Their marketability depended on royal gossip, not their own originality. The minute they stepped away from royal drama, the audience vanished. That dip in interest pushed them into risky territory, what you might call professional vulnerability. As the year wound down, they tried to switch things up again. Harry leaned hard into his Invictus Games work, while Meghan signed with WME, teasing a new lifestyle brand and trying to carve out her own lane away from royal talk. It was a bold experiment, but the rebrand didn't quite land. The vibe felt uncertain, like they were testing ideas without a solid plan. Even in the US, polls showed their popularity dropping after Spare hit shelves. That book, meant to humanize Harry, instead came off as bitter and awkward. What was supposed to be their comeback moment ended up reminding everyone just how overexposed they'd become. 2024 turned out to be a brutal year for Meghan and Harry. What was supposed to be their grand return to public favor ended up crashing hard. Those heavily publicized vacations they tried to frame as modern-day royal tours, total disaster. The public wasn't buying it, and the backlash was swift. The costs behind those trips were reportedly so high that by 2025, Archewell itself took the hit. The foundation was quietly shuttered, forcing the Sussexes to pivot to sponsorship deals just to stay afloat. Talk about a major downgrade. They were clearly chasing that royal-style image again, trying to resurrect the prestige they'd once had. Even their website got a glow-up, packed with regal design touches and fancy updates meant to give off official vibes. And with their parents' network tie-ins, it was obvious they were testing the limits. Could they fake the royal experience and still make money from it? Apparently, they thought they could, but reality said otherwise. Meanwhile, Meghan's next big move, the teaser for her American Riviera Orchard Montecito lifestyle brand, originally floated under the as-ever idea, didn't escape criticism either. The project's glossy aesthetic couldn't hide the growing skepticism around it. People were side-eyeing the couple for clinging to royal-style branding without any of the responsibilities or protocols that come with being actual working royals. By the end of 2024, the cracks were impossible to ignore. Reports of high staff turnover and whispers of difficult boss behavior started swirling again. Their communications team was struggling, their public image was crumbling, and their once polished empire looked shaky. Fans, critics, and even insiders began questioning whether Harry and Meghan could successfully manage anything, a brand, a business, or even just their own narrative. By 2025, Meghan and Harry's faux royale fantasy had completely crashed and burned. After that embarrassing flop, the couple tried to pivot once again, this time splitting their public images and diving into separate ventures. Meghan finally went solo, crafting her long-teased identity away from Harry. Since those flashy 2024 royal-style trips didn't give her the power boost she'd hoped for, she decided to let Harry keep the symbolic royal act, unless, of course, she could step in for a speech or a camera moment to remind everyone she was still the star. In 2025, Meghan went full-on CEO boss mom, a total rebrand with corporate flair and family polish. She rolled out nearly a dozen interviews in just a few months. Total media overkill. Every one of them was heavily staged, perfectly lit, and clearly orchestrated by her PR team, with some outlets even reporting that spots were paid for. But despite all that effort, the results were disastrous. Being a respected businesswoman takes more than branding and buzzwords. It's about actual results, and Meghan didn't deliver. Her projects flopped across the board. Her talk show idea fizzled before it found an audience. Her new podcast got barely any traction, and her as-ever lifestyle brand, which had been hyped up for months, tanked hard. The products were mocked online for feeling out of touch and overpriced, and sales steadily dropped through the summer. By fall, even the most loyal fans were quiet. Meanwhile, Harry wasn't doing much better. His philanthropic reputation took serious hits after messy headlines surrounding his partnerships in Africa and awkward fallout with the Invictus-related projects. Then Archewell's further downgrade at the end of the year sealed the couple's image problem. Harry's constant complaining and public griping only made things worse, reinforcing the view that neither of them could handle the pressure. By the end of 2025, the Sussexes' empire looked more like a cautionary tale than a success story. What began as a bold break from the monarchy had turned into a messy, scattered scramble, proof that fame, fortune, and royal ties can't replace real results or consistent direction. In the early years, people actually wanted to give Meghan and Harry a fair chance. There was this understanding that stepping out on their own would come with a learning curve, that it would take time to find their rhythm, build a team, and get their projects off the ground. So when things moved slowly, or when Archewell didn't take off right away, most folks stayed patient. Even the constant staff changes were brushed off as part of the growing pains. Everyone figured they were still trying to find the right fit behind the scenes. For the first few years, there was a lot of grace. People understood that launching businesses, charities, and big media projects takes work. A lot of trial and error before the results start to show. But by the time 2025 rolled around, the patience had run out. It had been over 4 years since they stepped away from the royal family, and by then, everyone expected to see structure, stability, and results. Instead, everything looked more chaotic than ever. 2025 became the year where excuses stopped working. By now, their brand should have been steady, with a clear identity, a consistent message, and solid leadership. But what the world saw instead was a total breakdown, a splintered brand, shaky business footing, and constant confusion about what they actually stood for. The public was no longer buying the "we're still figuring it out" narrative.
The willingness of royal family members to just throw themselves into it and do things like that does make or break a story for the papers. And actually, for all Harry's hatred of media, he did play ball a lot of the time. And I remember there was one in Cardiff where, Harry said he was with kids. Harry's great with kids. Whatever people might think of him, he is brilliant with children. And he said, right, everybody give Meghan a group hug, and the children all poured over and hugged her. But yeah, I mean, they were good value.
After years of chances and second chances, the Sussexes' empire wasn't maturing. It was unraveling. What should have been their era of stability turned into a year of spiraling setbacks, and the world finally started treating them not as newcomers finding their footing, but as professionals who'd lost control of their own story. By the start of 2026, it wasn't just Meghan and Harry's public image that looked fractured. Their entire brand was falling apart in plain sight. The defeats were piling up one after another, and there was no denying it anymore. Their popularity kept sinking lower, with Meghan hitting record lows in public opinion polls. Together, the Sussexes once again found themselves labeled among the most disliked public figures, a title no PR team could spin into something positive. At this point, it's almost like history keeps repeating itself. Every rebrand, every new project, every fresh start has crashed and burned. Meghan seems convinced that if she just spins things differently, reframing each flop as some creative choice or pretending every setback was part of a plan, she can stretch out her spotlight just a little longer, but the audience isn't buying it anymore. The public sees through the constant repositioning, and that illusion of control has totally worn thin. Now, for 2026, Meghan's trying again, this time with a cookbook. Yes, that's her next big pivot, supposedly her chance to reset her image with something wholesome and safe. But let's be real, no one knows if she can actually stick to her deadlines or deliver on it by spring. Her track record for follow-through isn't great, and every delay risks killing what little hype she's managed to build. If she waits too long, the buzz will fade, and by the time it finally drops, no one might care at all. Even if Meghan manages to rush out that cookbook, it's not likely to spark much excitement. Let's be honest, people already expect the recipes to flop, and there's hardly any buzz left around her projects. No one's really betting on this being some huge success story. Sure, on paper, a cookbook might seem like a logical next step, something safe, easy, and family-friendly, but in reality, it feels oddly disconnected. Her canceled show killed any momentum that could have tied the project together, leaving the release feeling random and irrelevant. Think about it. When a show gets canceled, the brand around it usually collapses too. There's no audience waiting for follow-ups, no built-in fan base craving spin-offs or tie-ins. The same logic applies here. Without a platform to promote it, this cookbook risks becoming just another failed side project that quietly fades away. And the problems don't stop there. Heading into 2026, Archewell itself looks like it's heading into hibernation. The foundation's been downsized, stripped back, and quietly downgraded after years of underperforming. Now, with Harry and Meghan parting ways with their PR firm, Method Communications, they're entering the year without any major public relations backing, a huge red flag for a brand already known for being chaotic. Insiders are already whispering that top agencies are hesitant to work with them, citing their reputation for being difficult and their track record of constant volatility. And without professional PR support, things look grim. It's nearly impossible to rebuild credibility or launch successful initiatives when your communication strategy keeps collapsing. So the forecast for 2026 isn't bright. Archewell might basically sit the year out. Without clear leadership or strong marketing, it's unlikely to make any serious impact. And with fewer big projects to hide behind, Meghan and Harry may finally have to face what they've been avoiding all along, a return to the UK spotlight they've been running from for years. By early 2026, it's believed Meghan and Harry have officially hit crisis mode. After more than 5 years in the US, the dream they once sold, a life of freedom, influence, and global success, has come crashing down. Their reputation has taken a brutal beating, the press coverage keeps getting worse, and their popularity has sunk lower than ever before. What was supposed to be their era of independence has turned into a PR nightmare that even their best spin can't fix. Nearly every project they've touched has either flopped or faced heavy criticism. The Netflix doc Backlash still lingers, Archewell is shrinking, and the so-called creative empire they promised never really took off. Now, for the first time since stepping away from the royal family, the Sussexes reportedly have no steady deals in place, no guaranteed income, no big contracts, nothing on the horizon. Their Hollywood shine has dimmed fast, and it's left them scrambling for options. Sure, they technically still hold the rights to produce 2 films, but there's been zero progress there, not even early-stage development. And those whispers about a potential Princess Diana documentary? Sources say it's still just rumor territory with no confirmed release or production schedule in sight. Even if it did happen, it wouldn't be ready anytime soon, meaning it's not the financial rescue they desperately need. As for Meghan's upcoming cookbook, let's be real. It's not exactly shaping up to be a blockbuster. The lifestyle market is crowded, and cookbooks rarely bring in major wealth unless they're tied to a viral hit, which this clearly isn't. Her as ever brand is also fading, struggling to stay relevant or profitable. Put simply, they're running out of assets to lean on. With all their ventures drying up and no steady revenue stream in sight, insiders believe the Sussexes might turn back to the one thing they swore off years ago: the royal family. Rebuilding those broken bridges could be their last-ditch attempt to secure stability and credibility again. At this point, even they seem to know their vision for life in America has fallen apart, and the clock is ticking for what comes next. The Sussex empire just isn't working. Not at all. Every big plan, every bold rebrand, every grand promise has fallen flat. So now it makes sense that Harry and Meghan might see reconnecting with the royal family at any cost as their best shot at a financial and image reset. They're hoping that mending fences could somehow restore their credibility, but let's be honest, this comeback plan doesn't look promising. It's highly unlikely they'll ever be welcomed back as working royals again. Too much has been said, too much trust broken, and too many public stunts have burned bridges beyond repair. Maybe on a personal level, a quiet reconnection could soften their public image a little. But it won't fix the bigger issues. Their reputation for inconsistent projects, shaky business moves, and underwhelming content won't vanish just because they shake a few royal hands again. And without a real public apology, one that shows genuine accountability, this reunion attempt may not move the needle at all. People can see through half-hearted gestures, and a return without humility could just make things worse. Insiders say Meghan is still refusing to consider a full return to the UK with the children, which could spark major tension between her and Harry, especially now that he's no longer using security as an excuse. If Meghan keeps digging her heels in, it might backfire hard, making her look even more stubborn and disconnected than before. The Sussexes are standing at a crossroads, rebuild or fade out. The next year could make or break whatever's left of their brand, and all eyes are watching to see whether they'll finally change course or double down on old habits. What do you think will happen next? Will Meghan and Harry pull off a real comeback or spiral even further? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and join the conversation below.